Who?
My two adults.
Very good. And how about these guys?
And just like that, we are back with another episode of the Movies About Movies podcast. I am your host, David McLaughlin. With me, as always, is my esteemed co-host,
Mario from Boston.
and we are discussing The Fabelmans today. Before we do get into The Fabelmans, we did leave the last podcast on a bit of a cliffhanger. Mario, you mentioned that Fidel Castro's favorite movie was Jaws, right?
That's true. Yeah, that's what he said. He thought it was a perfect metaphor for capitalism in America.
I think that makes sense, right? Because they put the tourism money over the safety of all the residents. I'm not going to try to break down Fidel Castro's opinion of the movie, but I see where he's coming from with the tourism angle.
It's such a perfect movie to kind of paint your own, monster and villain. I don't know. It's really easy to slap on any metaphor onto that movie, I think.
Oh, I could see that. Like the way that Tolkien said that with Lord of the Rings, like there's nothing religious that it's like meant to represent, but you could kind of project whatever you want onto the story.
Yeah, that sounds exactly like that.
I'm actually kind of clicking around here. You ever heard of the Criterion YouTube channel?
Yeah.
They got that Closet series.
Yeah. Did you see anyone recently?
Yeah, I'm looking right here. It looks like Fidel Castro goes in the closet.
At the very last second of that video, it blows up. The United States, 110th attempt to kill him.
They just put the Criterion bag over his head. I'll tell you, if I ever got to go in the Criterion closet, you know what movie I'm not picking?
What movie are you not picking?
The Fabelmans.
Oh.
It wasn't that bad, but this one was one of those ones that was victim of, like, if you watch it too many times, you enjoy it less and less each view.
Yeah, and that was the case this time. I was really delighted the first time because I thought I was gonna hate it. Surprisingly, not as basic as I thought it was gonna be, as generic. And then I don't know, you watch it a couple of times and it's like, yeah, it's definitely a one and done type thing. There's no reason to watch after you've seen it the first time.
And with all the time skips too, like it's more vignettes throughout his life. I didn't feel like there was one overarching story. And I found it more of like a sitcom type plot than something that's good for like a movie.
Maybe that's just less painful to do it that way. Because some of the subject matter, at least if it was me, it'd be kind of painful to think about. But he's, an old ass guy who's wicked successful now, so maybe he thinks of it different.
In like the behind the scenes, he wrote it with Tony Kushner. And it seemed like those two had conversations throughout the pandemic. And some of the conversations, the stories popped off. And the stories that sort of stuck out to Tony were the ones that sort of became the basis of the Fabelmans. So it really was just kind of like if you took like a really interesting 3-hour podcast and then decided to whittle away a movie out of it.
Sounds more cheaply made when you describe it like that. Definitely one of Spielberg's weakest in his catalog.
But despite it being his weakest, it got nominated for a bunch of awards, and I think that kind of points to, kind of the thesis of the podcast, that the industry loves to reward people that retell the same thing, which is just the movie industry is wonderful and great.
Yep. It's lionizing old Hollywood. Put up with a little bit of abuse. By a little, I mean probably a lot. Eat some crumbs while you're at it, and maybe you get a shot at the big leagues.
Right, and kind of jumping into like our favorite lines. I know for you, I know your favorite line, the one with like that last scene with John Ford.
That's right, yeah. And that's oh God, and to get and to get to the best part at the very end of the movie, and to get it from Lynch at all people. Yeah, I'm surprised he even said yes to this role. Yeah, he said...
when the horizon's at the bottom, it's interesting. When the horizon's at the top, it's interesting. When the horizon's in the middle, it's boring as shit.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice.
It took a couple of hours to get there, but it, well, it was good.
Yeah, I mean, he chose to wait in that office space, but as soon as he walks in, he's pretty impatient with him, right?
Yeah, immediately he's like not very welcoming at all.
Not very patient when he didn't understand his question about what's in the painting. And then at the end of it all, after he yells at him, gives him that little bit of advice, tells him to get the F out of his office, he comes back and he says, "Thank you."
Yeah. Oh man, the last bootlick.
He's like, "My pleasure."
My pleasure.
My pleasure. As he smokes his hoagie. I bet there was something cathartic for Lynch about that. I don't think he was ever on that side of the desk, It's more like he was the outsider. So interesting to see him there.
Yeah, admittedly, I don't know that much about David Lynch.
Arguably, probably the biggest would have been his adaptation of Dune. It's probably his biggest project he's ever had that put millions into his making into that movie.
For my favorite line, I'm glad I got to take a line from Judd Hirsch, just because I was watching Taxi before we started recording this podcast. And there's a lot of good ones to choose from his scene, but I'm going to go with "We're
We're junkies. Art is our drug. Family we love, but art, we're sugar for art.
That whole speech that he has with Sam is like chock full of a bunch of good lines as well.
Yeah, the uncle was great.
He had the one that was family, art, it'll tear you in two, which on my own end, I disagree with. I don't feel like art rips you apart from your family.
Yeah, that's Jesus, a pretty big leap, isn't it? Like that's really intense. Like why do they have to coincide at all?
I mean, going under the assumption that people's families are a source of support for them.
Right.
Granted, not everyone has that, yada, yada, yada. But with that being said, that would be like, oh, take away your whole support system. I don't know, maybe the only other relation would be like people that move to Hollywood away from their home. But that's sometimes like, necessity to get work. On our last episode, The Disaster Artist, my favorite line was,
"We're actors, Greg. You and me, people like us. Even the worst day on a movie set is better than the best day anywhere else."
Jesus, yeah. That's kind of scary that that's eerily similar to one of the lines from the Fabelmans. Is that bad writing on the Fabelmans part?
like how in South Park they have that little monologue that has the moral lesson embedded in there?
Right.
I feel like it was like one of those. And that's why I feel like Uncle Boris was like in that same camp. And it's funny that he got nominated for an Oscar for that appearance.
Wow, and he must have been there like less than 5 minutes total. That's unnecessary. Yeah, even in the little sentence below the Fabelman's review. But Michelle Williams, as his mother, is the soul of this fractious family drama. This is all about his moms, for sure.
I thought it was of like a very well cast movie, despite finding it to be a boring plot.
Yeah, for sure. All their faces really fit. They look like little Russian dolls, the ones from the eggs.
You're just saying there are a bunch of pale people.
Yeah, they're very pale and skinny, and they all seem to be very intelligent too. Where are they from? They're Russian, right?
Maybe. I mean, I didn't think it was that clear. But now that you mention it, if I was going to think of a fake Russian name,
That would
Boris
be
is on the list.
That's top 3.
So I listened to a lot of the audio biographies of Steven Spielberg.
Do you?
In preparation for this, I listened to
Okay.
at least a couple of them. Yeah, I don't like just regularly go to the beach and listen to a Spielberg
this
biography.
Is a big fan all of this whole time. Damn.
Like, there were certain discrepancies that popped up throughout Spielberg's life. Like, for instance, he lied about his age at one point, and people were able to sort of cross-reference interviews and different things from papers from the towns that he lived in, and they found out he was making himself out to be younger, to be seen as more of a prodigy.
That's funny. How much younger does he,
It may have been like, only a year or two, but like hanging on to being like
Okay.
one of the youngest like directors on, this lot
Right.
seemed to be like an important thing to him, or at least it became very important to him somewhere down the line.
Man, if it was that easy to lie back then, I'd lie too. Especially if it's just a year, I'd be like, "Ooh."
I don't know about you, but I don't think it's just a thing back then. I think people do this all the time.
Really?
Well, like going into sort of the review from the New York Times about the Fabelmans, taking one of the lines here, to embellish your origin story, to turn an everyday anecdote into a myth, is deeply human. And I think Stephen's trying to sort of create like a myth around his own life.
He's such a dork. Man, I remember back in fourth grade, there was this Brazilian kid there, and his name was, well, I'm not gonna dox him obviously, but his last name was Spielberg. It was Spielberg, and I mean everyone thought that was weird because who the fuck has a name called Spielberg, especially as a Brazilian, and he didn't look like a Spielberg, let me tell you. He was tall, dark, and handsome.
Do you think his last name was actually Spielberg?
Yeah, no, I think that was his real. I'm gonna have to look him up on Facebook. I want to see how he's doing. It's been a long ass time.
Because I've known multiple people that just randomly decided to start speaking with an accent.
No way.
Yeah, so like, you just start speaking with like maybe an English accent or a city type accent just to appear as like more of a character, I suppose.
Are these actor friends of yours?
These are normal non-entertainment people.
I would stay clear, my friend. It's a red flag right there. They're ready to turn in any moment, ready to snap.
And some of them, don't do it anymore, and some leaned into it even harder.
That's crazy.
But that does sort of remind me of Spielberg with the Fabelmans and sort of the discussion question for today. Do you think like you have to craft your own story? Like every single person in life, like you have to sort of figure out what your story is.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable to think everyone's creating their own story. That's the hopeful thought, at least. No one wants to believe we're living in a Lutheran hell where everything is predetermined anyway. In which case, just do anything you want if everything is predetermined anyway.
I think I need to specify the question better. I don't really have a good answer to it because I don't feel like writing a story for yourself is natural, and it for me it's like very mystifying, like people that are able to sort of put themselves in a box like that. I couldn't put myself in all the boxes that Stephen puts himself in from this movie.
Yeah.
Like he's very much affected by like a child of divorce. That's like a box he puts himself in. Someone that's made fun of for his Jewish faith. That's like a box he puts himself in.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know, for yourself, do you have like boxes that you put yourself in?
I'd like to think that Mario from Boston is absolutely boxless.
Even though the name Mario from Boston within itself is kind of its own.
That comes within a box. I don't know. I guess one I certainly sympathize with him and shared with him was as a son, and that intense feeling to not want to fail as a son to your parents. In his case, I mean, in his case, obviously both of them, but I think you felt the pressure more from his dad. He loved his dad so much. And every time it sounded like his dad wanted him to cut that kiddie shit out with the filming, do something practical, learn something practical. But then, obviously the same love and guidance that he got from his mom, and probably that same feeling of not wanting to fail his mom in her way, right, of being some pencil pusher like his dad, and to go out and chase his dreams and be, the artist that he's meant to be, because he comes from a line of artists. So I get that. I think that's a box any kid can share.
Yeah, I think to that point, like they say it in the movie, right? In this house, it's the scientists versus the artists.
Opposites attracted, not enough. You know what I mean?
Although I would say I would have loved to have like someone explain things the way that Steven Spielberg's dad does in this. I know he's like a huge nerd and it's very much from an engineer point of view, but very much demystifies everything.
I'd really appreciate it, honestly. Paul Dano is awesome in this, dude. I love him in almost everything he does. But I would love to have things be explained so clearly and told to me and so directly. That's not something I've gotten.
And I think like probably one of my favorite parts in the whole movie was when he discovered how to do the practical effect for the gunshots.
Yeah, man, goosebumps as a kid. I bet to feel that eureka moment.
But even cinematically, with like the mom stepping through the sheet music and then him seeing the puncture in the piece of paper and that triggering the idea to put holes in the film reel.
And that must have felt like also like a moment where he's able to include the feeling of his dad within his work, because it's figuring stuff out in a time solving way. And I think it's something his dad appreciated in the movie too, right?
Yeah, how innovative.
Right, because I mean, and you saw that, he thought, damn, my kid's smart. It's just too bad he's doing it, applying it to this kid stuff. Whereas Spielberg probably saw it as like, this is part of like my dad that I'm taking into my work.
I think to your point too, Paul Dano has such a good like I'm impressed look. Like, get a load of this guy.
He's got that long, horsey teacher type face or a priest like face. He's very cherub like.
Cherub, like that's a great word to describe him.
Yeah, add like 10 pounds to his face and perfect cherub.
What's your favorite Steven Spielberg movie?
My favorite, oh God. Immediately I want to say Jurassic Park. I've seen it 1,000 times. I love it so much. It's one I keep going back to. I don't think there's any reason to even think about it. I keep watching it, so it's obviously my favorite. What's yours? Is it also Jurassic Park?
Jurassic Park is on my list of perfect movies.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Yeah, for sure. A perfect movie. Perfect movie.
And I think a piece of what makes that movie perfect to me is the practical effects.
Even today, man, 2025. Go ahead on whatever streaming device you put it on, watch it, and it'll hold up today. It's insane. It's so cool.
We saw a lot of awesome practical effects in this movie. And that was one of those things that's like, oh, I like that sort of foreshadows him using them in, the big Hollywood ones. But when he was doing the war movie and then he steps in the ditch and then it kicks up a bunch of dirt behind him, like he stepped on a landmine.
Yeah.
I thought that was incredibly creative.
For sure. And it made me think, oh man, the next time I watch Saving Private Ryan, I'm gonna specifically try to watch for a scene that emphasizes that, and just to see if he saves himself like a couple of dollars just doing that cool trick.
I don't know if it's more cost effective or it just requires more coordination, but I think on camera it ends up looking much better, the practical effect, and I think maybe it holds up better than some of the special effects you see.
Yeah, no, number one, you're right. And then, I mean, I don't know. I don't know who did the CGI for Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, the octopus guy.
Right.
Oh, man, that guy looks amazing. And I think something about our brains in 2025, too, and moving on, is just it's always going to constantly evolve and be, like, sharpened into trying to distinguish AI and, like, uncanny effects for our eyes to see, whereas with like a practical effect thing, maybe we see it for what it is and it's not as, I don't know, it doesn't mess with our brain or whatever. I don't know.
You know, I didn't even think about that, but like to take another example of his practical effect, the one when he's doing the beach movie and then he shows the seagulls and then the ice cream falls on people's faces.
Oh yeah.
Like I think we're part of the reason we're so delighted by that is because our brains are able to say, oh, that's not actually geese poop.
Right.
So it's like kind of the opposite of AI where it's like, don't make it too real because now I'm like suspicious of it. But if you make it almost a little obviously fake, it's kind of a delight.
Yeah, because there's a part in your brain where it's like, how did you do that? Like, I know that's not what it is. There's a part in your brain where it almost doubts it because it just looks so real and it just makes you question it. That's like having a little chocolate right under your tongue. Just let it melt there.
Something else we could discuss just a little bit is the mom in the movie.
Oh, I'm glad you were just gonna say that, because I was gonna ask you who has the best haircut in the movie, and there's only one obvious answer.
Have you seen the pictures of Steven Spielberg's actual mom?
I have, and
They nailed it.
nailed it, man.
I think my favorite moment of her is when they're all fighting and then she gets on a chair and says, "I started therapy."
That was a very interesting relationship that he portrayed, because it didn't seem at any point like the mom just seemed very lost and vulnerable.
Did you find her likable?
I did. If I was Spielberg, I would have been annoyed, but I found her likable, because I saw at the end of the day a loving mom, like a mom that like loves her kid unconditionally and believed in him and thought the best of him and thought, like, you should follow your full potential as an artist and not just pencil push. And that's ballsy to do as a parent, I'd imagine.
I think you brought up some great points there. She was so supportive of him, even early on. Like some of the biography stuff that didn't make it into the movie, like she would let him take days off of school so that he could film movies. She would put him in the car, drive him to the desert. She would put on like outfits and be like the actors for him just so that, he could get the shots that he needed. And on top of that, because she was that pianist, she composed and recorded music for his movies.
Wow. I mean, that's going so overboard with having him miss days out of school. That's crazy. That's awesome. I mean, that's awesome. That's so cool. It was all under the dad's nose. I bet it was.
Well, the dad also supported him too. Like,
so it wasn't like it was portrayed then.
Well, on two levels, right? Because the dad did work for like, engineering type stuff, so he was making all the money. So, on that financial level, he was supporting him. But there's a time when he needed to film in an airport and told him, like, call up the airline and ask if you can use one of the planes between flights. He had Steven call them himself and sort of advocate for himself and ask the favor. And I feel like that's a good parenting move, right? Make your kid ask, make them face the rejection, also make them learn to be polite and when they're asking for people for something. But you gave them the resources, you gave them the number, you gave them the advice on how to go about it. So I feel like that was just like A+ parenting.
Yeah, that's just as supportive and just as kind, because even if you didn't believe like he was going to get what he wanted to begin with, you're teaching him how to go and get it and teaching him to do it the right way, respectfully. They were both wicked supportive, it sounded like. What did you think about Olaf, the choice for Seth Rogen to be the other man? That's an insane choice, and it's such an insult to your parents memory, specifically your mom's, that you couldn't find a more handsome actor in Hollywood. I thought it was such a stupid choice putting him. All I saw was Seth Rogen and his stupid voice. Why was he there? He didn't bring anything to the table. He wasn't there long enough to do it anyway. They didn't give him enough juice. He just pissed me off. And is one of the reasons why the movie just didn't stick with me as well, too.
Whenever I see Seth Rogen, I have that same issue where it's like I just see Seth Rogen. And because of that, I feel like he's just a bad actor. If I can't see you as anything other than who you are, I can't think of like a definition of a worse actor. All the sitcom guys that have like bit roles that like became iconic, they have that issue because they only see that character. But at least that's a character that you played, so at least like you nailed it once. I'm with you. I think Seth Rogen's a bad actor is really the thesis statement in that.
I didn't want to interrupt your version of Ether. That's Nas's diss against Jay-Z. I should have said Kendrick Lamar's because that's more current, isn't it? I'm such an old head. I listened to his his voice on Invincible, a show on Prime, and he's like an alien there, and his voice fits perfectly. I thought, yes, a stupid, colorful alien, or in his stupid, horrible movie he made with the talking food.
Sausage Party?
Yeah, I mean, despite that, like, I guess I just prefer him as a voice actor because I can't see his stupid face and think of anything else but Seth Rogen. But listening to his voice on a hot dog, it's like, okay, you know what? This fits a lot better. This idiot, that's fine. He's typecasted to food, and that's okay with me. You know what his best role is, man? I just finished Eastbound and Down. Have you seen Eastbound and Down?
I
Seth
have not.
Rogen does a little mini appearance, 2 minutes tops. He's a closer for the Texas Rangers, right? He's in a club. He's trying to talk to a woman. He pulls out a bunch of money. He goes to the table and he's like, "Oh man, do you guys know what time it is right now?" Something like that, something stupid like that. The woman gets freaked out and she walks out. He follows and he gives the stupid monologue on the street, and then out of nowhere a truck hits him and he dies gurgling on his own blood. And then it cuts to the credits to the show Eastbound and Down. It's awesome. It's so good. But yeah, what a miscast. What a miscast to put this goober as the man that broke up your parents. your parents, marriage, dude. That's so weird.
He may have been the only miscast in the whole movie.
Agreed. Yeah, for sure. The only.
I'm going to be true to the rating I gave it back when we first did the summary, and I'm giving it a 7 out of 10, and it definitely got a big bump for me because the ending was very satisfying, and if you have a good ending, like, you get a bump for me. Like, you left me leaving good about it, like, you left on a laugh. Like, I appreciated that.
Word for word what you said. I think my original rating was a 6.
Your original one was a 7.5.
7.5.
And you said it was a perfect 7.5.
Then I'd have to retract that and say it's a perfect 6.
So
no, I mean
we're talking about a negative 1.5 from watching it too many times.
It's a perfectly one and done. Maybe you're homesick and you turn this on with your parents on in the living room and you think, all right, this is safe, and then it's over, and then you wake up and you realize, oh, I was okay. A perfect 7.5. Yeah, I think I'm a generous man. I think I'm just too much of a gentleman, and frankly, the fact that you just told me, I'm shocked at my own gallantry that I would say something like that. I'm such a nice person. I'm usually not. No, it's a perfect 6.
We're talking a 1.5 drop just from watching a movie too many times.
Yeah, man. That's not supposed to happen. You can ask me what's my price rating? What's my rating for Jurassic Park right now? And I would have told you the day I saw it the first time as a kid, and I probably saw it a month ago as an adult. It's still a 10 out of 10, man. I've seen it 1,000 times. It's still so good. This is a not so good.
I don't think people agree with us because out of the 121,000 user reviews on a popular movie review website,
Bots, all of them.
well, the bots gave it a 7.5.
Oh, yeah, they're all wrong. What we have here, Gloff, is either a lot of stupid people or just all bots. And that's what we're here for. We're a service, and we're here to warn people and spread the good word. And now people know.
Before you were standing right there with the bots.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm so shocked. I don't even recognize that man anymore from months ago. I've really been put to the test, and now I see. And as a reviewer, I learned the lesson that there needs to be staying power when I'm giving these final numbered reviews, because something like this tricked me into thinking this was a 7.5, and I was wrong. I was deceived, and I don't appreciate it, but I'm glad I got to clear it up today and really say how I feel. And it's a perfect 6, and there's nothing wrong with a 6. You know what I mean? That's an even number.
I would say the previous episodes, Ed Wood is a movie I think I could still watch that and enjoy it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I could too. And honestly, dude, I watched Singing in the Rain again with Elise. But that's because she wanted to watch it, and also her mom wanted to watch it because I talked about the podcast with them, and the mom was like, "Ooh," so they asking me a bunch of questions about the movie, and I'm like, you know what? Let's just watch it. Let's just go ahead and watch it again. And then we did, and they liked it, or the mom liked it mostly.
Well, you're not a musical guy, like admittedly.
Yeah,
Like I agree that I think Singing in the Rain is a classic, and I don't
yeah.
see myself watching The Fabelmans or The Disaster Artist again
Me
soon.
either. But I do see myself watching Ed Wood again for sure. And like yeah, like I said, I ended up watching Singing in the Rain again. And honestly, I mean, once I saw it, I got the stupid song stuck in my head again. I mean, they're real musical earworms. So they succeed there. I don't have any type of visual or audible earworm when it comes to this movie.
And next time I'm excited because you actually picked the movie that we're going to do next. I've been kind of like putting options in front of Mario and being like, hey, which one of these do you think we should do? Which one of these do you think we should do? After the Fablemans, I'm like, I don't even want to give any of the options because I'm afraid they're going to be as boring as the Fablemans was.
It can get scary after this pick. I mean, I think we had some interesting ones before, but with this one, my goal was just to find something similar to what we're talking about, something funny too. I wanted it to be funny, and yeah, just not in America. And I chose One Shot, One Cut of the Dead. Yeah, I'm really excited to hear what your thoughts are on it. Have you done any quick googling on what it's generally about?
I didn't do any Googling, but as is customary, whenever we decide a podcast, I buy the DVD or Blu-ray of it. But it says it's the best zombie comedy since Shaun of the Dead, which I saw for the first time in 2024, and I thought it was
Oh, really?
amazing. I loved it. So I'm
Oh man,
I'm nothing but excited for One Cut of the Dead.
that's a hell of a compliment because Shaun of the Dead is the funniest zombie movie ever made, and this one would probably be a close second, maybe.
And you
Um,
have been itching to do a foreign film, which, considering all of our movies about movies have had kind of a similar tone about the movie industry, I'm really curious to see what One Cut of the Dead might say about the US
about
Hollywood system, or
an
maybe it
old
says nothing.
version. Yeah, that's what makes it so exciting too, because it does dive into that, and I think we'll see some things pop up that we've seen before. We'll see some new things too. Overall, I'm super excited that we're gonna watch it.
I think just to sort of put the Fablemans to bed, a little bit of a newer segment we've been doing, and I'm hoping to actually post these when it's all said and done, but the account does exist if you want to follow the Movies About Movies podcast on Letterboxd. But I want to do a quick, like, 1 or 2 line Letterboxd review of the Fablemans. It feels like a series of cover letter stories. They'd be interesting podcast stories, but a boring movie.
Wow, it would be interesting podcast stories, but a boring movie. What a shiv right into the ribs.
You got some great word choice today, gotta say.
Yeah, I mean you're the one with the reviews here, man. I think that's perfect. Yeah, it's surprising it's even a Spielberg movie. This is something he should have gave to someone else. It's genuinely surprising. This is a Spielberg movie.
All right, well, with that then, until next time, thank you for listening. That's a wrap. Toss salads and scrambled eggs.